Nerdy City flipped our world upside down and made things stranger with their nostalgic suburban horror game, Remembrance. Then, they made our skin crawl with a game based on the videos so gross and disturbing they were termed nasty with their horrifying tabletop, RPG Nasty. Now they send us back to the Saturday morning cartoons and brightly painted plastic toys we remember from our childhood that were more than met the eye. Commandroids, the first installment of the Radical Shadows universe, puts you in the driver's seat of your very own transforming robot. With a Kickstarter launching in the beginning of August, you can live out the battles between the heroic Symbitrons and the dastardly Nemesites in a world transformed. To be part of this Kickstarter and contribute, please search for Commandroids on Kickstarter or visit nerdycity.com for more information.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
I'm down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
Are you ready to get down with some D&D? I know why, and I'm joined, as I am always joined by the misty, motivated, and late-night recording Mad Wizard Merwin. What's up, Shawn?
Well, thank you, Chris, for recording late night since I'm going to be on a trip to the West Coast.
Yeah, this is not a normal recording time. It's the evening. I'm not used to talking to Shawn in the evening. The sun is down.
Yeah, I'm up way past my bedtime.
Down with D&D after dark.
That's right. I may even be wearing pants.
Neat. Let's get nerdy with it now, with some announcements. So let's talk about Trap Trap, an adventure by Jean Lorbert, friend and patron of the show.
Mm-hmm. So this is a neat. It has many of the things that I love in D&D. It's a one-shot.
Yeah.
That has traps, and it has kobolds.
I mean, who doesn't love a good kobold, right?
Right. So Trap Trap is a standalone challenge that can be run in a single session. The challenge is designed for a party of 4 third or fourth level characters. And as written, the tone for Trap Trap is an over-the-top, fun but deadly spectacle reminiscent of ancient Roman gladiatorial events.
Yeah, thanks. Gene was kind enough to send us some copies of this. We've been leafing through it now and again, seeing what we can glean from it, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, he told me that he wrote this, or he finished it after he had listened to our episode on traps.
Oh, neat. That's cool.
So I am looking forward to maybe running it for some people to see how well it plays.
Yeah, you can pick it up on the DMs Guild right now, can't you?
Yes, you can. So just look Trap Trap.
All right, let's talk about the next thing. It's an article that we wanted to talk about. It was out a little while ago by James Hake, but it's reimagining racial ability scores. So I'm not a fan of racial ability scores, not at all, not in any way, shape, or form. I know they're a part of the game, but they're not one of my favorites.
Yep, they're one of those sacred cows that I think is now ripe to be slaughtered.
Yeah, we just kill it. It's fine.
Yep, and it made it through to 5th edition, and it's obvious why, because after 4th edition, people said didn't feel like the D&D they remembered. They wanted to make sure that some of the trappings of older editions made it into 5th, and racial ability adjustments are one of those things. And so I understand why it's there, but it's just, as we often call it, it's kind of like outdated design.
Yes. Outdated terminology, too.
Mm-hmm. True, very true. So what James Hake's article on D&D Beyond talked about was, if you were going to remove racial ability score increases, what would you do instead? And so he gives a couple of examples. One is to reassign ability score increases to make your class the thing that raises your ability scores rather than your race, or to tie ability score increases to your background. So if you're an acolyte, for example, it might raise your wisdom by 2 and then one of your other ability scores by 1. So you're tying those things to not what you are, but kind of who you are.
Yes, I'm actually a bigger fan of that. especially the background one, because I don't know, it just gives a little bit more heft to backgrounds, and I like the backgrounds a lot already as it is. So that one works for me a lot. I think I would use this with the backgrounds all the time.
Yep. And the third option he gives is to do a combination of the two. Give an increase to an ability score based on your class, and then give a different ability score increase based on your background.
Yes, that is a really good idea too. But let me ask you this, Shawn. If you're going to put a twist on this with a twist, what would you do?
What I would do is I would get rid of ability scores altogether, as well as getting rid of ability increases based on anything, based on race, class, whatever. What I would love to see for 6th edition is get rid of ability scores and just go with modifiers. And when you create your character, you just get the modifiers and you can put them wherever you want. So for this campaign, we're going to have a +3, a +2, a +1, a 0, a -1, and a -2. And everyone put them wherever you want for your character.
By the way, that's Shawn's OSR Death Trap dungeon game where people are going to die all the time.
And so, you could have your base. This is how we like to play, or this is how the base game suggests you play, and then you can do whatever you want based on that. If you want to play a more low-powered game, just give lower scores. If you want to have this, what I love about characters sometimes is ones with really, really low scores in certain areas, because it gives you some role-playing to do. It makes everyone not a superhero. So you could just say, and you get a +4, +3, +2, +1, but one of your abilities is -3. Boom. Everyone has to play with that. Let's go. Let's play. So you could do whatever you wanted. It's very simple. No worried about rolling dice or different methods of rolling dice, or Bob always cheats. No offense, Bob. I'm not talking about any Bob in particular, just Bob in general.
I thought you were talking about Everson, but that's just me.
Yeah. So he always comes with all 18s.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, just do that. It's quick, it's easy. It makes it easier to teach the game, create characters. That would be my solution.
Yeah, there is like a bit of latency when it comes to number then modifier, right? Because the number in D&D doesn't. There's very few rules in D&D that mean much to the actual number of your stat.
Yeah, I was trying to think of any that did, and I can't off the top of my head. I know there was in 4th edition. There was maybe 1 or 2 things that were tied directly to your score rather than the modifier. But everything I can think of in 5th edition just refers to the modifier. Unless you're doing damage to an ability, like it drains your strength, 3 points of strength, then you're getting into needing that number. But you could just as easily say take 1 off your modifier. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like,
yeah,
I can't think of whichever. I thought maybe strength was, but maybe strength is based off the modifier in this version of the game. I always forget. Like not strength, like carrying capacity, encumbrance.
It's possible.
Not that any of us use it anyway.
Yeah, and you could always tie those numbers to modifiers rather than the straight number anyway.
You can. You are straying dangerously close into the dungeon world area of games.
Yeah,
which is fine. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there. That's all. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's where that's closer to where that design is going.
Yeah, and that way you don't even need to worry about racial or background or any sort of modifiers. You just have what you have.
Yeah, and
now
you could do something else with those things. Those like background or heritage. I prefer heritage to race.
Species instead of race.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I'm down with species, but
yeah, I mean it's a minefield to start getting into quantifying things like that and using terminology that's shady to begin with. So yeah, I think
heritage has got its own problems. So
yeah, exactly.
It's all got problems.
So you could still tie certain abilities to race, So orcs could still be, reckless or whatever. Even then, you're still talking about something that is borders on racism. Even though it's fantasy racism, it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you might even be better off of just having a laundry list of different ability types that you could take for your character. And we could talk about this. We could have 2, 3, 4 shows.
We
this.
could. Maybe we will in the distant future.
Yeah, but I think if you haven't yet, go read James's article on D&D Beyond. It's free, of course, to read the articles on D&D Beyond. So you have no reason not to. And let us know what you think on our forums. If you agree with this, if you think it's a good idea, if it's not, and why.
Yeah, the why part's the important part.
Exactly.
We're curious as to the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to our topic, which we were talking about Acquisitions Incorporated, the book. We're doing our third part, which is growing your franchise, the second half of it, where we're going to talk about company positions and then the franchise tasks and downtime and how those have evolved, which are really cool in my opinion. Let's talk about the company positions, not specifically, more in general first. So you rank up in a company position, which there are 8 of them, I think. I read.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
There
there
are.
are 8 of them. They are the cartographer, decisionist, documenter, horde person, loremonger, observator, occultant, and secretarian. By the way, you could just go and get your subscription to D&D Beyond, get the book, and you can see all the stuff. You get your ranks equal to your rank of your franchise, and at every rank you get new abilities.
Right.
And these positions, they are another thing to add on to backgrounds, classes, and races. Although if you don't really want to have all 4 of those things, I feel like you could probably sub in some way, shape, or form, the company positions for backgrounds.
True. I think that would not take too much away from the game, because most of the company positions give you some of the similar things that a background would give you.
Yeah, which is why I suggested that.
Yeah. It doesn't give you. It gives you some equipment, but not like a full panoply of equipment. It gives you some.
Good word, by the way.
Thank you. It gives you some proficiencies with certain tools and some skills every once in a while. So you could do it.
Yeah, I mean, you actually don't
yeah.
need backgrounds to play D&D. Like, you could just take the money to buy your gold. So, I mean,
True.
same deal with the company positions. You don't need them to play D&D. I think they're better with all that stuff, but that's just me.
Yeah. The cool thing about company positions, and one of the reasons why that they're in this book, is because in the Acquisitions Incorporated game, Jerry Holkins, who plays Omen Dran in the AI game, and he's the DM for the C team, started to come up with these positions that someone would have in a company. And so it kind of kept the idea of this corporate entity becoming an adventuring group. It kept that going. But the more he used it, the more he seemed to realize that these positions are actually good for teaching people the game. Because as we talk about these, you will see, if you've been playing D&D a long time, back in the first edition days, there were roles that you would take as the player. Someone would be the mapper, right? Someone would be the caller. They would be the one that made the decision for the group.
What, you mean like the decisionist?
Like the decisionist. Someone would keep track of the treasure.
The horde person.
Kind of like the hordes person. So, all of these things were there, and Jerry did a great job of beginning to move in that direction of, hey, let's match these former things that were right in like the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide during AD&D days, and move them into this corporate world and see how they come out. And so he started doing that in his games, and then we expanded on it for the book to come up with 8 of them.
It's pretty great, actually. We won't talk about all of them, but we'll talk about some of them so you can get an idea of how they kind of function.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start at the beginning with our mapper. I mean, our cartographer.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we said, at every rank, you get something as this. And at the beginning, the cartographer they get proficiencies in starting equipment, but then they get an ability called It's a Rental. So, basically, at the start of any mission, you can requisition a secondhand draft horse and cart riding horses and ponies, typically well-aged, one for each party member, or passage on a ship or ferry that might require some minor labor as part of the fare, and similar transportation like that. Like, you get that stuff. Like, you could just be like, we need this, we're going to requisition it from the head office, give it to us. It won't be
Yep.
great, but it'll be there.
Yep. So that is your right as the cartographer for your franchise. AI will pay to have this for you.
AI will rent to have this for you, because if you damage it or lose it,
Yep.
you have to repay it to the head office.
That's very true.
It is definitely an AI Acquisitions Incorporated asset.
Yep.
They're basically loaning you a thing. So that should be a thing to note. A lot of this stuff, especially the low rank 1 stuff, it has some sort of catch to it.
Yes.
But to me, that makes for good gaming, right? Like, that makes for fun stories.
Right. I mean, it's you're not that you're not that hot yet, right? You're not that hot of an adventurer. You're still low level, and you are working for a company that's loaning you stuff. So, make sure you bring it back in good condition.
Yes. As a cartographer, you also get at rank 2. You have a spyglass already, but this spyglass becomes a common magic item called a spyglass of clairvoyance. So with this thing, you can any location within a mile it's obstructing your view, like think of a mountain or something like that. You have to make a wisdom check. It's a DC 15, and then using your cartographer's tools, you can map the natural terrain found within 3 miles of that chosen point. You don't really understand what creatures or structures or anything other than the natural terrain is around there. But you have that natural terrain now, so like that can be very useful. Like natural paths, what deer and fauna are like carving out there, things like that. And once you do it, you can't use it again until the next dawn. So it's neat. It gives you information, but doesn't give you everything.
Right, and it can help the DM then give you choice. Oh, you've mapped out this route that you need to take. You can go through that swamp, but that's the shortest way. Or you can go around the swamp through the mountains. It'll probably be safer through the mountains, but it'll take longer.
Yeah, so those are really neat choices to take,
Right.
and they could lead to very different encounters. Another one of the I want to talk about 2 more things. I want to talk about the Tale of Safe Travel, because there's an upgrade for that, and then the Map of Shortcuts. I like both of these quite a bit.
Sure.
So the Tale of Safe Travel, you can perform this ritual. It takes like 45 minutes. You have to use your cartographer tools, and you need 50 gold pieces in consumed material components. It doesn't say what those things are. It just has to be 50 gold in material components. So you say you have it, you spend the money, good to go. If you do this, you can ensure safe travel for you and other creatures from your current location to another location you can normally reach within 1 day. The destination must be one which you have traveled to previously, or for which you have an accurate route and map. So you already need to have gone there. It's not like a thing that'll get you to somewhere you've never been. And it costs you some amount of money to do, and some time. So I think that's neat. And then it says, moving on from that, if your tale is told with reverence and precision, so it's sort of assuming that you're actually going to tell this tale, you and 6 other creatures plus their gear become encircled in a magical bubble and are pulled into the border ethereal, which is in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So, like, you tell the story, and when you're done telling the story, you're where you're at in this safe space.
Yep. And so what this does many things, right? This gives characters a way to use these abilities to, they're using resources, right? They're spending gold, which they might not have at lower levels, to do this. But it also eliminates that need for making a roll every however many time units you want to travel. You can just get there. So it's also a narrative tool. Okay, we don't want to go through all of this, so we're just going to use this Tale of Safe Travel, and boom, it's there. You're there. The narrative can continue from that, and there's role playing involved because the cartographer needs to come up with this tale.
And as you're telling this tale of the future journey, you're relating details of what will be seen on your route. So, like, maybe you have a world map and you're doing that, but while you're telling that, the DM can choose to add to the story, imparting, like, more stuff to it. That could be future adventure seeds or whatever. And on top of that, if you want to, as the cartographer, you can end the ritual early to allow the party to encounter what is being described by the Dungeon Master.
There you go. So that eliminates the problem of we flew to this place and we missed the 4 encounters our DM had, put there that were going to be the next part of this big story.
And that's assuming that they're coming back from somewhere or going to somewhere they've been before, right?
Right.
I just think it's neat. This is a very specific kind of D&D playstyle where you are now entering more of a narrative space than a charts and maps space.
Yep.
Which is, I think it's great. Like, I'm glad that all of these versions of this game are starting to exist and we can play in a variety of different ways and there's rules supporting it. The last thing was the map of shortcuts. So this is at rank 3. This is a pretty high level ability. You have to be like level 11 to get there. Your map case, because you have a map case, it becomes a common magic item. So you can use it to generate a special map that identifies a shortcut. Right? So you just pull out this map and it's got a shortcut on it. I mean, it takes a DC 15 Wisdom and Perception check to do so, but to find that map in your case.
Right.
But your travel time is reduced by half when you follow that route, and if you succeed at the check by 5 or more, so you get a 20. The map notes the terrain, granting you advantage on the next ability check you make to travel through that area. It's pretty neat. And once you use that feature, you can't use it again until you finish your long rest.
Yep. So, again, what we are seeing in the book, I want to step back and talk about the book as a whole, just for a second, using this to illuminate it. You know, one of the worries that people had about the book was, oh, it's just silly. It's just goofy, and there's nothing in here. It's just, it's just people writing comedy. And as you can see by just the few things we've talked about here, that's not what this book is, right? This book is carefully thought out. It's thought out in terms of people who have been playing D&D for a long time, people who have been playing D&D in different ways for a long time, who are trying to meld mechanics and narrative and role-playing and functionality all together, in a cool way. And I hope, as one of the contributors to the book, that people are seeing that we went to great lengths to make it usable and useful for everyone.
Yeah, this is
not just for AI fans.
For somebody who didn't work on this book, which I'm actually calling it a game. This is a game version of D&D, right? In my opinion, like, you're playing a specific version of D&D when you play with the rules of this book. It's telling a specific kind of story, which I think is great, right? Like, and I'm not saying like specific as in like from beginning to middle to end. I mean from like situation, like you were part of a company. That's the idea.
Right.
And to get more into that, I really want to talk about the Decisionist, because the Decisionist,
okay.
If there's one character in here that you probably need some buy-in from everybody else in the party, like one part, this is the one that you want the buy-in from.
Sure.
So the Decisionist, you are not necessarily, I mean, you're probably the leader of your party, but you're not the leader, whereas you can just necessarily always force things to happen.
Sure.
Or if you do, you're going to be in a lot of trouble
Right.
after a period of time. Like, your job is to resolve inter-party conflicts. So if the will of the rest of the party is to like do a thing, you should be doing the thing with them, because you always want to be on the side that is right.
Yes.
You never want to be forcing everybody to be on your side.
Yep.
There are some rules in here that do that for you. So, one, you get a voting kit. Like, you get it's like a box of ballots.
Oh, yeah,
An
ballot box.
I voted sticker set. Like, it cracks me up.
Yes.
And then you get your coin of decisionry. So this is a large gold coin emblazoned with the AI sigil on one side as heads, and a various. It could be anything on the other side, but they have some suggestions like Omendron or yourself, or like a tankard of beer, or a Mass Lord of Waterdeep. By the way, the AI headquarters is in Waterdeep, right? It says it in the book somewhere.
Yeah, we put it there. It's where has changed over the years, but we just put it in Waterdeep because that seems to be where Omendron spends most of his time.
That's fine. I wasn't sure if the book was going to set Acquisitions Incorporated in the Forgotten Realms proper or not.
Well, yes.
And if it was where it was going to actually set it. I wasn't sure if it was going to make it generic so it could be anywhere, which it can be anywhere because of planar travel.
Right.
But I wasn't sure if it was going to actually like specifically say that the headquarters was somewhere, which it does. That's fascinating to me.
Yep.
That means it's part of the canon.
You know how I feel about the C word, canon. So we'll just say that's what this book says.
Okay.
So
until
wherever-
something else says differently, right?
wherever it works for you is where it belongs. For the book's purposes, we said Waterdeep.
That's fair. Okay. So at rank 1, you get an ability called Tiebreaker. So when people vote, you can present your coin of decisionry and cast 2 votes. So you get to be the tiebreaker. That leads to the whole making it so that you're the one that helps settle inter-party conflicts.
Yep.
This is the one that I wonder about. So absentee ballot. So if a member of your franchise party is absent, you gain their vote and can decide how they would have voted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at that point, if there's 2 people missing and there's a 5-person party, you basically have the choice yourself. I don't know how I feel about that. That's why I say you need some buy-in from the rest of the group.
Yeah, but this is also, they're not necessarily talking about out of character. They're talking about in character as well.
Oh yeah.
So yes, you're absolutely right either way. And a ruthless person could say, "Oh, you two go to the trading post and get us some rope," and then say, "Okay, let's have a vote," while they're gone. So it's something to be aware of. But then when they get back, they're going to know something's happened most likely.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Plus, they could call for a revote at that point, right?
Very true.
Then you get at rank 2 your coin of decisionry. It becomes a magic item. So when you flip the coin, it always lands with the AI sigil face down, and a message appears in the tail's face, and you roll a d4 to determine the message, which could mean lucrative, brand appeal, indeterminate, or ruinous. And this coin has absolutely no divination abilities, and its results are completely random when you use it. But nobody knows that, just you. Maybe you don't even know that. Nobody else knows that, so you do know that. When a creature within 10 feet of you flips the coin, you can exert your will to control its operation as a bonus action. So then you can choose the result that appears after it lands by gently coercing the user towards a specific course of action. As a means of gently coercing the user. It's really cool. That's a fun little item that you can utilize in cities and things like that, right?
Sure. I mean, it's a little bit of a deception coin, right? Hey, ask my coin if you should give us 100 gold pieces. And then you flip it and you say, make it come up lucrative. And, it came up lucrative. That means you should, because it'll be good for you.
Absolutely. There's only one other power I want to talk about with the Decisionist, is the inspired decision. Because, Shawn, like you mentioned, I think these are the things that make this book shine pretty well. Is these are actually abilities that I would want to have on my character. Mm-hmm. So at rank 3, whenever a serious franchise vote is taken and the result goes the way you voted, you can inspire everybody else with a brief speech. So you have to make a DC 15 charisma persuasion check, and then if you succeed, each franchise member of your choice gains advantage on their next ability check, attack roll, or saving throw they make, as long as it's within the next hour. The only thing is that once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So that's the good limiting factor to it. Yep. But I really like that ability a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just something, again, you can role play it. It has a mechanical benefit. It's not overly broken, especially at rank 3, because now you're talking about 11th level characters. So it's not, super powerful, but it's flavorful and it's neat and it gives you something.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to mention the documents real quick. They're the people that deal with the contracts in a lot of the documents, but they have an ability that's called Fluent in Boss, which is worth noting because I think it's great. So if you're Fluent in Boss, that means when you're told to do something by the head office, you basically can cast the augury spell, so you can find out what the best way to sort of please your higher ups. It's just funny, right? You understand boss. That's a good gag, and it really works inside of the Acquisitions Incorporated book, and it also has some usefulness to it.
Oh yeah, and you get as your common magic item to start with a satchel of holding. It's a documentsy satchel, which lets you communicate with the home office. Mm-hmm. You put something in, they receive it there. It becomes a satchel of holding, which is basically a bag of holding, although it's mostly useful for scrolls. Mm-hmm. You can pull a scroll of comprehend languages out once per day. So you've always got that ability if you need to. And then you can hold many, many spell scrolls in it and pull it forth as an action.
So, Shawn, have you ever wanted to be the person that just carries around all the treasure?
I've played a rogue before, so I have been.
Yeah, so if you like doing that and you want to do that inside of a corporate situation, at least in a fantasy corporate situation, I think you just want to be a hordes person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you get the goods.
You do get the goods. In fact, not only do you get the goods, but you get this item called a living loot satchel. Mm-hmm. So it's basically a bag of holding. It can come in a whole bunch of different varieties. Like you basically pick what you want it to look like, or you can roll. There's a chart for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then for instance, the bards is the loot case, right? That's great. I like the clerics. It's a hollowed out holy tome.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the wizards. It's the pocket dimension hidden up your sleeve or inside your hat. Like that's just fun.
Yeah,
like it's just fun stuff.
I like to think of it as a happy mimic.
Yeah, a happy mimic. That sounds about right. That seems reasonable.
Because it's a kind of a living thing, but it's really an object, and but yeah, it turns into a bag of holding, portable hole sort of thing.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is, right? So it actually has like a secret compartment that goes back to a place in the home office, like a vault there.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. Like it's like a little like portal.
Yep. So if you need an item from the home office, you just let them know via Documancy, and soon after you can open up your living loot satchel and pull it out.
Yeah, that's that thing you need, right? That's the rank 3 ability, actually.
Yep.
It's a bonus action of reach in there and grab it. It takes a DC 15 Dexterity Sleight of Hand check to do so, but you can, like Shawn said, you can grab pretty much anything from the Adventuring Gear table in Chapter 5 of the Player's Handbook. It's really good. Works really well. It can only be used 5 times, and then you can't draw anything else out of it until the next dawn. That's the limiter on it, which is really good. So, if you haven't noticed, there's like a design pattern on a lot of these, and that's how it kind of like functions.
Yep.
There's also like a little thing that you get. It's called Living the Good Life. So, like, the head office trusts that as long as your needs are met, you have no reason to skim any profits. So they give you more money to live a wealthy lifestyle at no cost to you. It's just taking care of the person that's holding the funds, right?
That's right. They won't need to skim if you're making sure they're taken care of.
Out of the next 4, is there anything that you wanted to touch on? I know I want to talk about the occultant, but we can talk about any other ones if you want to.
Well, I'll just mention the loremonger real quick. The loremonger is the person that takes down the information. So there's always somebody taking notes. What's that NPC's name? What's our mission? Oh, there was a riddle about getting into the Mountain of Doom. Oh, we better remember that. So the loremonger is the person that keeps this information. And they do that via another magic item called the Whisper Jar, which is simply an ether-filled jar with a long hose. And the hose is the microphone that you speak into, and everything that you say is recorded in the Whisper Jar. And then if you need to remember something, you just use your action and it repeats it back to you.
That's actually really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, being the loremonger has some really wonderful benefits, especially in the kind of games that I like to play and run. Mm-hmm. So there's, at rank 2, you get Need to Know and Whispered Encyclopedia. You mind if let's just touch on these for a second? So Need to Know is, as an action, you make a check. It's an intelligence investigation, and you learn a whole bunch of stuff about a creature, because you have preternatural knowledge of the creatures around you. So you get its name, 3 aliases it has used within the past month, its primary profession, and its skill proficiencies. You can only use it once until you finish a long rest, and you can only use it once on any creature. But that's really cool to me. Like, you learn a whole bunch of stuff.
Yep. And so what Whispered Encyclopedia does then is all the loremongers of all the franchises put their knowledge into one broad category or one receptacle that your Whisper Jar can then tap into. So you can find out information that you didn't put in, but someone else put into their own, and then it pooled in the Acquisitions Incorporated database, if you will.
Can we just talk about that then? Then there's like a database somewhere of knowledge, and all of the Whisper Jars are connected to it.
Yeah.
That means it's like a magical internet.
Yeah. And again, this is, if we break it down now for gaming purposes, right? There's always this cool history in your game. And you're like, okay, give me a history check, and people are rolling and nobody's getting it. And if you've got this information you want to give, now you can just give it.
Yep.
Oh, it's in the whisper jar.
It's in the
Here
whisper
you
jar.
go.
Just go ask.
Yep. Yep.
I really want to talk about the occultant. I really like the
Let's-
occultant.
Let's do it.
All right, and then we'll be done. We don't have to talk about it anymore. I just think
Okay.
the occultant's worth talking about. So
Sure.
the occultant's gig is that it tracks the creatures and foes that the franchise has bested or killed, weighing them against the deeds the franchise has achieved. So like they have this weird abacus that they use to like measure the karmic stuff of their franchise, hoping to gain portents or insights or stuff like that, so they can have a better chance going forward. Little karma readers, I would call that, right?
Yeah.
All right, so the art's great. First off, for that one,
The abacus.
the abacus is wonderful. It's got a bunch of little skulls on it. It's so good.
Yep.
So the abilities I want to talk about are read the kill is the first one. So read the kill. If you study a creature killed by somebody in your franchise within the last 24 hours, you can then grant the character who slew it a D10. And then once within the next hour, that character can add that D10 to an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. That is a really good ability.
Yeah, it's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a D10, so it averages out to about a 5 or a 6. But once per rest, that can be pretty powerful.
Especially when like you really need to hit with that one attack that you're trying to hit with.
Right. Or that saving throw that if you fail is going to be very bad for you.
And you can combine that with other things too, right? Like you can combine that
Sure.
with advantage, and then you can combine that with bless.
Yep.
So roll a couple of D20s, take the best of those, a D10 and a D4. So
Sure.
really good ability. I mean, that's nice. It's got a nice limiter on it, once per long rest. So, and you have to have killed somebody. So those are good limiters on it. Works pretty well. I also really like Eldritch Occultant. So it tracks stuff like the people that you've killed and the people that you've saved. So if you hold it within 5 feet of something you've killed within the past 24 hours, you can cast the Augury spell. The course of action that you inquire about with the spell does not need to have any connection to the dead creature. This property of the Occultant Abacus can't be used again until dawn. So
Yeah.
not bad.
That spell is one that it's a cool spell, and you can do really cool things with it story-wise, but especially at like mid-levels, it's hard to justify wasting a spell slot on it if you're you're going to be going into battle.
Oh yeah, so it's great to have it on these other things, right?
Right, just so for story-wise, you can do things with it without using that resource.
There's a few places that augury is used in interesting ways with these professions, these positions.
Yep.
There's Bring Out Your Dead will upgrade. Like you can use the Read the Kill. It's called Bring Out Your Dead. It's Read the Kill feat. It's Read the Kill upgraded. You can use it after a short or a long rest. That's all it does. And the last one, I guess we should talk about Death's Omen and Beat of Instant Karma. So Beat of Instant Karma is that you as a reaction you can target a creature you can see that's about to use an ability check, an attack roll, or saving throw, and you can either grant them advantage or disadvantage, and then a bead that is on your abacus crumbles to dust, and then it will reappear the next dawn. I think that's really flavorful and fun, and useful.
Sure.
And then at rank...
Yeah,
yep, go ahead.
And I was just say that's at rank 4, so you're talking 17th level.
No, I'm talking
So
rank 3. That's rank 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, Death's Omen. Yep,
Yeah,
rank 3.
only
sorry.
level 11. I don't really talk about the level 17 stuff because a lot of people don't
Yep.
play up there. I mean, if you are playing up there, awesome. Cool. I would love to
Yeah.
hear your stories about your games. I really would,
Yep.
actually.
At rank 4, it's Beat of Diverted Karma, which is something different.
Yeah, I
but yes.
don't even know what it does because I barely ever look at things that are level 17 until I get to level 17. The Death's Omen one's pretty solid. So you can read the portents of a creature's demise. So you choose a creature that's below its maximum hit points, make a wisdom check, it's DC 15, insight. And then you can determine whether this creature's immediate death would have a neutral, negative, or positive impact for you and your franchise. And you get to know if it's different for you and the franchise. So, like, if it's a different answer for you and the franchise, you get to know that. So that's a fun role-playing thing to have there.
Yep.
And, also, once again, we're into augury space, right?
Sure.
And it's a bonus action, so it doesn't, impact, the fight-type stuff usually.
Mm-hmm.
I
just want
I
to.
love the
go
I
ahead.
love the occultant. I think it's
Yeah.
fun.
So the occultant is after something happens. What does that mean for us? The obviator is the strategic planner. They look at the situation and try to figure out what to do based on what they're looking at. So they're kind of two sides of the same coin. The obviator is beforehand. The occultant is taking down the numbers afterward.
Ah, okay.
And the last position is the secretarian, which is kind of the PR person. They're the person who keeps track of who you've hired. They keep track of what people are talking about around your franchise. Secretarians of different franchises talk to each other to keep tabs on things, to share information. So it's it is very much tied to business, but it's also pretty cool within the game itself, because your magic item you get is a sending stone, so you can talk to people.
Yes.
You can interact. Your abilities are something like the rumor mill. So through your sending stone, you can make history checks to learn about things happening in other places. You can send your card away, or send your card. So you have this portfolio that becomes a magic item, and you put business cards, quote unquote, business cards into it, and and those things have certain powers. And so it's just kind of a neat thing. Again, to keep track of information, but to put a business spin on it.
Yeah, it's very flavorful. It fits right into all the rest of these and what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's the company positions. I think they're great. I think they're designed really well, and I think they do a lot of the things that they're supposed to do to bring you into that corporate feel fantasy D&D game. Let's move on now to franchise tasks and downtime. The first thing I wanted to do was talk about a downtime activity from the original Player's Handbook, so that we can contrast it with some of the downtime activities in the Acquisitions Incorporated book. So here's one from the Player's Handbook: practicing a profession. You can work between adventures, allowing you to maintain a modest lifestyle without having to pay 1 gold piece per day. The benefit lasts as long as you continue to practice your profession. I'm not going to read the rest of it because it's just more boring stuff. That's not a very fun downtime to me activity. I mean,
it does what it does. You might make a little gold. You get a free lifestyle.
Yeah, you don't even really get to make gold, right?
Right. I mean, they assume you're making gold to keep yourself alive.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
if you're the Hordes person, you just get that once you're level 5.
Yep. True.
So the reason I bring that up is now let's talk about some of the stuff that this book is trying to do with their downtime activities. They are providing a chance to make a number of checks to see how well you succeed. They're asking you to understand what your goal is of what you're trying to do. There's like a nice little section in there about how you should go through thinking about downtime activities. What is your goal? Like what's the path to it? What are maybe some possible complications that could come about that? Then it asks you to think about what are your rivals doing, and how might they impact your downtime activities. I'm going to assume that everybody knows what downtime is. Shawn, is that fair? We don't have to really rehash that, right?
Why don't we? Why don't we just mention what downtime is what you do when you're not out on an adventure.
And mechanically, it has some stuff to it. Like you get some amount of downtime days between adventures.
Right. And there's no hard and fast rule. It's usually a campaign by campaign thing where some people just ignore it completely. Oh, you gain a level and we're off on our next adventure. and then some use it to give players different options for what they might do when they're not adventuring. And as Chris said, the ones in the player's handbook and the DMG are pretty basic, and that's okay for some campaigns. But downtime is another way to deliver a mechanical, fun game, and another way to pump up your narrative.
Well, to compare, then, let's talk about this idea of franchise restructuring,
Okay.
which is a downtime activity. So the idea is that sometimes a growing franchise needs to, fix itself, fine-tune itself, move some pieces around to get things working correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So to do
Or
yep.
Or if you've ever worked for a large corporation, this is we're going to ramp up a new initiative, and we're going to restructure the way we do X or Y. And normally what happens is, you do this for a month, and then either it sticks or it falls apart, and you go back to doing things the way that you once did.
There you go. So you have to spend some amount of resources to enact this. It's about 2 work weeks of effort. You also have to spend 100 gold pieces per rank and expenses to, pay for the restructuring. And then you'll have a resolution, which is how a lot of these are structured. So you make some amount of ability checks. Usually, in this case, it's 2 ability checks with a DC of 13 plus the franchise rank. First, you have to succeed at either an intelligence, history, or wisdom insight check. So you can identify the proper areas to innovate. You get a +1 though for every character with lower monger or horde person position in the franchise, and you get some extra bonuses.
If the character making the check is in one of those positions.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Then a character or staff member must make a charisma, deception, performance, or persuasion check to get everybody else on staff or everybody else on board with the changes. And you get some bonuses for having different other people in the proper positions.
And this is so exactly like a corporate thing.
Yeah,
right? It's the people behind the scenes are like, okay, this will work if we do this. This will be good for us. And then you send the person out to make sure everyone understands that this is for the good of all. And so you give that charisma check to get everybody on board. It's perfect.
So if you really want this to work too, you can spend hundreds of gold pieces, just throw more resources at the problem to make sure that the project goes off correctly.
Yep.
Also, very project management corporate, right? To a maximum of 1,000 for a bonus of +10.
Yep.
So also, you can also get a +1 bonus for every 2 work weeks beyond the initial time spent undertaking the activity. So the longer you take to, there's this thing in project management called the triangle of scope, resources, and time. Right, there you go. Shawn is cringing on the other end of the podcast right now. He's like, "Why would you do this to me, Chris? I hate this stuff."
Yep. It's the old saying is you can have it fast, you can have it cheap, or you can have it good. Pick 2.
That's right. There you go.
So it's either going to take a long time, it's going to be really expensive, or it's not going to, it's not going to be good.
So you do this, and then you make those checks, and then there's a chart, and it has for 0, 1, or 2 successes, and based on that, you can look at the benefits that you get. So if you don't succeed at all, you failed, and the franchise monthly cost is increased by 20% for 1 month. But if you do super well, get both successes, you get to your monthly franchise's cost is decreased by 20% for 1d4 months. So that can be a lot cheaper for you when you have a much higher cost, right? If you have some sort of giant castle that moves around, that's thousands of gold pieces a month.
Right. So if you can decrease that by 20%, you're doing well.
Yeah, you're saving yourself some cash, especially if it's for more than 1 month.
Yeah. But you know what, Chris? Sometimes in narrative games, failure is cooler than success.
That's true. So there are complications. So what happens when you get 0 successes in this situation?
Roll a d6.
Oh, and then there's some stuff that happens. For instance, the search for efficiency uncovers a previously unrecognized issue, such as corruption, problems with staff dynamics, or an influence from a rival. That's always pretty fun. Want to pick another one?
Yeah, I like the restructuring plan has too many buzzwords and acronyms. The resulting confusion sees shipments or staff sent into a dangerous location. A sidetrack adventure is required to recover the lost personnel or goods.
I just want to fail that so that can happen. I mean, I
Exactly.
don't want to pay the extra money, but I want to definitely go on the sidetrack adventure to recover the people and goods.
And the cool thing about this is you could use it even if you succeed, right? Even if you succeed, one of these complications might happen. You could use this as a create an adventure, create a campaign sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to talk about the marketeering. I do want to talk about the structure of these, though, now that we've gone through one. So
Sure.
it is definitely like you're going to do a thing that has a goal to it. So
Right.
in our example that we kind of highlighted, like you're going to restructure the franchise, and it's going to provide a benefit, which the benefit is to save money over the course of time. Right? That's a very corporate thought, but that is exactly what it does. Then you need to figure out how you're going to do that, which is like, what's it going to cost? And then what are the checks that you need to make to get there?
Right.
And then each of those checks, there should be like, for however many checks there are, between 0 and 3, between 2 or 3, that's pretty much all of them are 2 or 3 checks. They each have some benefit that comes with them. So it's graded successes.
Sure.
And then if it's 2 rolls, then 0 is the bad thing causing the complication. If it's 3 rolls, it's usually 0 and 1 successes are the bad thing that causes the complication.
Yep.
And then you have some complications that you have an idea for. So like if you're making this stuff up on your own, it's not that hard. You don't have to come up with these charts and whatnot. You do need to know what the benefit is for 0, 1, and 2 or 3 successes. But other than that, like you can tell these little neat stories with your downtime.
Yep. And I just want to read off what downtime activities are in the book. It's explore territory, franchise restructuring, headquarter modification, marketeering, philanthropic enterprise, running the franchise, scrutineering, shady business practice, schmoozing, or team building.
I like
Those are the ones that,
the shady business practice and team building ones. They have to be hilarious. They are hilarious. I've sort of skimmed through some of them, but they're so funny.
Yep. And this isn't something that your characters necessarily need to do because you have a staff. You could put these activities off onto your staff and have them doing this while you are out adventuring. And then when you come back, you could come back to reaping the rewards of a well-trained and careful planned activity, or you could come back to total chaos.
You know what? We talked about this a couple of episodes ago with people, like, or maybe it was last episode. I think it was a couple episodes ago. When you have a franchise, maybe it was last episode, you have people in your franchise. Like you could have a one-off adventure of doing the team building exercise with those other characters.
Sure.
Right? Like not your main characters, but like the NPCs and the crew and the skilled and unskilled laborers that run your stuff.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it could be, a 2-hour session of just that.
I mean, I'm kind of interested in the game where like there's a group of people that come and play the hirelings of the adventurers,
That's funny.
and then
yeah.
like every game they come back, like there's this terrible like horror, like what did those adventurers do to us while we weren't here playing?
Yeah,
Because they have the
That's-
sessions in between.
that's very true.
Oh, that would be kind of
it-
fun.
It would be an interesting game to run for 2 separate groups.
You have to get some serious buy-in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, this went longer than I expected. I was having really a lot of fun talking about the positions. I'm glad that you let me do that, Shawn. It was enjoyable for me.
Glad you liked it.
Yeah. Let's do some Patreon shoutouts because that was a really fun episode. And these patrons should be thanked for letting us do that. MT Black, Matthew Pezzarelli, Nate Brooms, Robert Aducci, Robert Day, Robert Dorgan, Ryan Bolter, Space Rhino, Steve Bissonette, The Closet Gamer, Thomas Hook, Troy E. Taylor, and Troy Pitchelman. Thank you so much for being our patrons. And speaking of patrons, if you'd like to be a patron of Down with D&D, you can click on the link to our Patreon page on the website, and for $2 a month, you can get yourself a shout-out.
Or for $4 a month, you not only get a shout out, you also get to see our show notes, and you get access to our Slack room where you can chat with us about your favorite D&D topics or your gaming topics or whatever you want to talk about.
You know, if you can't help us monetarily but you want to give us a boost, you can do so with an Apple Podcast review.
Apple Podcast is the way that many podcatchers use to rate and rank their shows, so that would help make us more visible.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate it. Shawn, where can we find you on the internet?
The best place to find me is on Twitter at Shawn Merwin, or now you can go to our forums at forums.misdirectedmark.com. How about you, Chris?
So you can hit me up at the Light 101. That is the best place to get me. That's on Twitter. Or you can hit the show and the network, which is at Misdirected Mark on Twitter. You can also just go to the website. It's a really nice place. And you can get to all these places pretty much from there. And you can also catch other great shows, such as the Gnomecast, where several gnomes from the Gnomes Stew get together to talk about gaming topics and themselves in an effort to entertain you and avoid being thrown in the stew. Although I think we've all been thrown in the stew because some of us are clones.
Cloned Gnome Stew.
Mm-hmm.
Down with D&D is a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs.
So, Shawn, buddy, old pal, what corporate espionage downtime job are we going to go on today?
We're going to go kill some monsters and then figure out how that affects our karma.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
I'm down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?